Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I am your host, ELENOA McCabe. I'm an IFBB Bikini Pro and an online fitness coach. And today it is just it is a solo episode. So it's been a while. I know that these episodes have been a little bit sporadic in the last month, and for that I apologize. But if you've been patiently waiting, I promise I am going to get back on my Wednesday weekly uploads. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. This one is going to be a prep update and Q&A. So as many of you guys know, I am actually competing this year. Woo! It's official. I have ordered my suit, my heels, the jewelry. I'm starting to book the makeup. I'm going to do the DIY pro tan for the first time. So all of the good stuff that you need for competing. Also the contract. So if you don't know, if you're not familiar with the NPC and like IFBB, the IFBB, when you are competing as a pro, you do have to sign a contract and commit to the show. And you're not allowed to back out unless you have like a valid medical reason. If you do back out of doing the show, you actually get fined. So it's a commitment. And I actually love that they do that because you can't just say like, oh, I'm going to do the show and then back out of it. You have to follow through. And y'all know I am so big on doing the things that you say that you're going to do, following through on your word. And so I just love that. But I do still have to sign my official very first contract, which I'm so excited for. So at this point, when you guys will be hearing this podcast, I will be 5.5 weeks out, which is both so exciting and also a little bit terrifying. So I thought that it would be nice to kind of give a little update on where I am in my prep, like kind of catch you guys up on my life, what's been happening. The last time that I spoke openly about my prep was a couple episodes ago, plus like the time off. So at that point, I was probably 10-ish weeks out. So what exactly has changed since then? First of all, I am completely locked down, locked in, no more travel for Mrs. Worldwide. This prep is probably the first one that I did so much travel. And of course, this is kind of funny. Like I wasn't going to talk about this until later, but I realized that a lot of us do this. We go through a certain experience and we say in our heads that we're not going to talk about it or we're not going to tell people about it until after we've achieved a certain thing. Oops. So originally, my thought was like, I'm going to do all of this stuff and then I'm going to talk about it post-show. I'm going to talk about how I traveled and I stayed on track and I was able to still balance my prep and life experiences and X, Y, and Z. But the harsh reality is the first half of this prep was made much more difficult due to my decisions to travel. Traveling on prep is not impossible, but it is extremely inconvenient. So if you think about it, when you're prepping for a show, a lot of variables do play a huge part into how you lose fat, how your body responds, the internal processes within your body, like your cortisol, your adrenals, your hormones. And the continuous travel that I was doing was honestly putting a lot of stress on my body. And it made it more difficult to see linear progress. I don't want people to come in and take away that like, oh, you can't travel on prep. I don't think that that's true, but I do think that what I'm going to talk about today, when you get to a certain point in prep, you do have to just lock it down. You cannot be traveling all over the place all of the time, staying up late, messing up your routine, training and cardio at all different times of the day and expect to see results. Of course, the results will be there, but they're going to be slower. You're probably not going to feel very good. For me, almost every time that I got back from traveling, I got sick. And I am not typically somebody who gets sick a lot. So to me, I was like, there are some things that I'm choosing to do within this prep. And I take full responsibility. I chose to do all of these things, but it didn't exactly lead to an easy time. So if I'm being honest, like I do think that my traveling and just being out of routine affected my body a lot more than I want to admit. It was extremely difficult for me to lose body fat or to see progress on the scale because I was constantly inflamed. I was constantly stressed, sleep deprived from early flights, nights out, going to festivals, all of just having all of the fun. And like I said, I do not regret that at all. And I'm taking personal responsibility for it. But I do think that when it comes down to it, prep is a chance and an opportunity for you to practice saying no. You're committed to this journey, you're committed to this prep, and the end goal is to step on stage as your absolute best. I don't want to sit here and give myself excuses. I do think that being a seasoned competitor does allow me to have that flexibility and did allow me to do the things I wanted to do this summer. But now that I'm 6 weeks out, this is the time where I'm like, nope, like I'm locked in. I'm not traveling anywhere until my show. I am going to be here in Austin. I'm going to be very much in my prep bubble routine. And I think that sometimes, especially as new competitors, you might struggle with finding that. But my best advice for you guys listening, whether you're a seasoned competitor, a newer competitor, is truly set yourself up for success ahead of your season and understand that the more that you commit to during your prep, the more likely it is that the results you're looking for are going to be a little bit slower. So I have noticed, though, positive, I have noticed that since being home, I have consistently been dropping weight. I've been tightening up much, much faster. Within this last week, I started the week Monday at 130 pounds, and today's Friday, and I'm 127 pounds. So I lost 3 pounds in the span of a week, which is a good feeling, feels great. But also, if y'all have been in prep or if you've been through a hard diet, you also know every pound that you start to lose, like when you get to that place, it starts to also affect your cognition and like your performance. Because for me, I don't think that you guys will notice within this podcast, but for me, my brain, like my thoughts are much slower. It takes a lot more energy, a lot more effort for me to speak exactly what it is that I want to say, come up with the sentences, all that. So I did prepare though. I do have an outline in front of me, but you'll have to forgive me if there's long pauses in this podcast. I'm just trying to find my train of thought. So the other thing that I really did want to dive into was blood work. And I talked about this a little bit on my Instagram story. You guys have to get blood work done. It is so critical. And I want you guys to take my tale that I'm about to tell you as a tale of caution. I want you to take my experience and lodge it in your brain and understand that there are consequences to starting preps when your health is not where it needs to be. So back in March, I did get blood work done. And at that time, I guess let me back up because I don't think that everybody listening is going to fully understand how to read blood work or doesn't have like a understanding of values. So if I were to say like, oh, my cortisol was an 18, many people wouldn't know exactly what that is. So I'll do my best to kind of explain as I go. But I got blood work done in March. And at that time, my cortisol was an 18. My T3 was a 2.5. And it was pretty clear that I had zero progesterone and my estrogen was a little bit higher. Oh, that's my meal timer. My bad. And from there, so from March till about June, I spent that time building in a surplus, intentionally training, eating more, trying to put on as much as I could because I told Megan that I wanted to do a prep for this fall. And knowing my blood work in March, I decided to ignore the fact that I would potentially be starting prep at a disadvantage. And what I mean by that is when you get your fasted blood work drawn, we like to see your cortisol values anywhere between like an 8 to a 12. Mine was an 18. So that means that already my adrenals are struggling. My cortisol is too high. It means that I'm living in a upregulated, stressed state more often than not. And then with my sex hormones, because I spent so long in a deficit last year, I kind of knew that my hormones were probably going to be out of whack. But I also was like, well, I'm health resilient. Like, I'm sure that they'll fix themselves. I got the supplements. I started sleeping a little bit more. I was like, I'm in a surplus. Like, I'm sure that my body is going to fix itself. Like, it'll be fine. And then going into June, I was like, all right, this is it. Like, let's dive in. Let's start prep. And my mistake was not getting blood work done at that start of prep, because now the most recent blood work that I did get done, I think it was a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, I got my blood drawn and we got the results back and we were going through it. And it just explains, like, not only did me not being in routine, being constantly traveling, getting sick every other time that I was traveling, not only did we have all of that, but my blood work reflected that my thyroid has completely tanked. My cortisol was a 24.8, which is extremely, extremely high. And what that means, when your cortisol is really high, your thyroid shuts down. But we already know my thyroid was struggling. Your sex hormones shut down. Fat loss becomes close to impossible. You actually get more fat accumulation. And because of all the inflammation that's occurring in your body, it's almost impossible to build muscle. And if anything, your body's going to start to eat through the muscle that you have. So having really high cortisol is probably one of the worst things that you want in a prep setting, because let's say that your health is good going into prep. You're going to be dieting. That puts stress on your body. You're going to be doing cardio. That puts stress on your body. You're constantly training, stress. All of those things already are going to impact your hormones and impact your systems. So if you think about that, I started from an inopportune place and I am now at a place where it makes sense why I wasn't seeing any results. And honestly, when I got the blood work back, on one hand, I felt relief in a way, because I was like, okay, like, this makes sense. I was staying on track. Like, I was doing my cardio. I was dieting. I'd go out with my friends. We would go to the pool for the day. I would pack my meals. I would do my hour of cardio before we went. Like, I was on track as much as I possibly could be, and still wasn't seeing fat loss, wasn't seeing results. And so getting this blood work done was almost vindicating in a way, because I was like, okay, we know why I'm not responding. It's because my cortisol is way too high. And what's kind of funny as well, is that I think it was a few months ago, like, Megan and I were talking on the phone and she was just like, why are you always doing the most? Like, she's like, you are just always, you don't chill, you don't sit down, you don't relax. Like, you are just always going above and beyond. And we joke about, like, it's our running joke where she's always like, you're just doing the most. And it's like, I am. And I thought it was funny, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, no, actually, me doing the most was probably more detrimental. And, like, for example, like, I've gotten really into hot mat Pilates. And while it feels really good to go in and sweat and challenge myself in a different way, and I love the way it makes me feel in that moment, that's added stress. That's just me piling on again, putting my body in an upregulated state and not allowing myself to just be and relax. So it's kind of one of those things where instead of pushing harder, sometimes you truly do have to pull back. And a lot of the athletes that I work with, like, I see this come up a lot, they struggle with the same thing. And I talk with my coach friends, like, we laugh a lot about how often our athletes and our clients are mirrors, because I'll get so frustrated that, like, oh, my athlete's not listening. Like, she said she was feeling sick and then she went and trained anyways. Like, why is she doing that? Why isn't she just resting? And it's like, well, Noah, like, you struggle with just resting as well. Like, that's a mirror for you. So it's just been kind of interesting to have that direct reflection in a way. And also now I feel really grateful to have this experience and to go through this the way that I am, because now I can use this as a tool, as proof, as anecdote, as experience that, like, hey guys, your internal health, getting blood work done, starting prep from an actual good starting place is so important. So, so important. Because the other thing that I have been thinking about is really, like, how much longer do I have in this sport? How many more preps does my body have within it? I know I probably sound like a broken record, but I've been competing since 2017. The only time I ever took off was 2018. Since then, I have done a prep literally every single year. I have not stopped. And I haven't gotten to stage a couple times, but I've still put myself in that stress state. I've still put myself in a deficit, doing a lot of cardio, like unsustainable amounts, super low food, lots of activity, constantly going in the gym, weightlifting, doing my posing, like tweaking my back to the point now where my hips get misaligned so easily. And it's like, these are all things that you have to think about before you go into a contest prep. And I want people to take my experience and truly learn from it, because of course I'm going to finish this prep. I'm going to finish it out, but we don't know what's going to happen post show. We don't know how long it's going to take for me to get to another opportune state of prepping again. And for me, like, my thoughts, obviously I can't say for sure, but my thoughts are that, post show, I have to focus on getting my cortisol down. I have to focus on getting my thyroid back online. I have to focus on getting my estrogen and progesterone in a healthy place, coming off of PEDs. Like, that also throws a wrench in things. And then also I'm probably going to have to look at my gut health, make sure everything there is good, and then spend time truly at maintenance, like allowing my body to just be. And so what Megan and I have really tossed around is like 2025 might be the year that I intentionally step away from competing. Not that I'm going to stop bodybuilding or that I'm done competing forever, but just intentionally stepping back and putting my health at the forefront, because as a coach, my athlete's health is first and foremost. And if you guys have worked with me, and a couple of my athletes have experienced this with me, is we get their blood work done and I'm like, hey, we have to optimize things first. You are not in a good position to start a deficit. You're not in a good position to push your body through the stresses of contest prep yet. And a lot of the time, if you're impatient, if you're stubborn, you don't listen, you go to another coach and they put you through a prep, and then you rebound right after your show because all of these things in your body were not addressed. And I mean, we see it with countless athletes, not just myself, but there's also athletes that you guys probably follow that live here in Austin that have gone through terrible rebounds that you've seen. And it's because their internal health wasn't thought about. It wasn't taken care of. And that's a really shitty position to be in, quite frankly. So, I wanted to talk about my blood work. I was like, I'm getting off on a tangent here. So when you get your blood work done, first of all, you need to get a comprehensive panel drawn. A lot of people think like, I'll go through my PCP, I'll go through my doctor. Most of the time, your doctor, your physician, they will not draw all of the necessary labs. So when I say a comprehensive panel, I mean, I need your CBC, I need your CMP, your metabolic panel, I need your thyroid, I need your complete hormone panel. So testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, free testosterone. I need your cortisol, your insulin, your A1C, your vitamin D, all of these things. You need to get a comprehensive snapshot of your blood work first before you ever think about contest prep. That way we have a baseline of data. Where do you naturally sit? Where are you, like, when you're just letting your body chill, or maybe you've been in a growth season for a while? Okay, cool. Where's your baseline? Let's get that data. And then that way, when you do go through the prep, you can get blood work done, 10 weeks in, and then maybe you can get blood work done 6 weeks out from your first show. And that way we have the data. How's your body affected? What are things that we can do to overcome the challenges that we're seeing? If you're stalled out, okay, cool. Blood work is going to give us the answer, because not only do we have your baseline, we also have where you're at now. How far did things fall or like trend up or down, right? So I cannot reiterate the importance of getting your blood work done. Having a coach who understands your blood work, understands your goals as an athlete, and puts your health first. Because I've worked with a coach who says, get your blood work done, and then goes ahead and doesn't take care of your health. So also being cautious with who you put your trust in. And if your coach maybe they get results, but where do their athletes go? What's the turnover like on their team? Do they have athletes stick around for the long time, like for the long haul? Or is it constantly like, oh, they did a prep and then they're gone? I wonder why. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on was, I wanted to talk about my personal, so like what we're going to do. This is what I said that we were going to talk about on Instagram. Thank you for hanging in there. The things that we are going to do to band-aid me, to get me to the finish line, to get me on stage at my best. And obviously, like, I'm a very determined athlete and I'm extremely passionate about what I do. But I also understand, like, hey, we have to take care of my health. We have to do what we can do to get me to stage. And so that's why I call it like band-aiding. So our plan to band-aid me, to get me on stage, is number one, we have to get my cortisol into a healthier spot. Obviously 24 is not where it needs to be. It's not where we want it to be at all. So some of the things that I personally have done for that is I'm implementing Chill Factor from Purefactor Formulations. I do work with Ryze HRT. So if you get a Bloodwork panel or if you need specific supplementation, you can use my code NOA, and that will get you 10% off, I believe, the supplements. And then for the blood work, it will also get you a deal for the future. So I'm using Chill Factor from Purefactor Formulations. While that's being shipped to me, I picked up some ashwagandha. So I am using ashwagandha KSM 66 in the mornings, which is actually so funny because it definitely makes a difference. It chills me out so much. Like when I first started taking it, I was like, oh, it makes me sleepy. And then I was like, no, it's not sleepy. It's actually just bringing me down to a baseline. Instead of me being high strung, like a little bit more anxious, neurotic, like always kind of like go, 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 the ashwagandha is bringing me down to a more neutral, stable, calm level. So that's something that I do in the morning. And then what's been incredibly important to me is my morning and bedtime routine. So my morning is absolutely sacred. Nobody gets my time in the morning. It is my time. I wake up, I do affirmations, I listen to a gratitude or meditations YouTube video. I get ready for the day, or I start like hydrating and get ready for cardio. And then cardio is really my time to just like be within myself. I'll listen to music, a podcast. I don't like to work while I do cardio because it's really just like my time. And then after cardio, to get me back down into that calm state, honestly, I'll lay down on my floor for like 5 to 10 minutes and just do some deep breathing. Really get myself regulated, get myself calm. And then at that point, I'll either stretch, do some mobility, do some posing, and kind of get my day started. But I think it's been such a game changer for me to intentionally take time in the morning to just spend with myself and pour into myself. Because a lot of us, whether you're a coach, an athlete, a mom, a wife, a career woman, anything, you most likely are pouring into everybody else and not yourself. And that puts you in a stress state. If at the end of the day, the only time that you're relaxing is when you're getting in bed and laying down and closing your eyes, and that's the first time that you have to yourself to relax, that is not good. Not a slay. We need to make sure that we are intentionally taking time for ourselves, whether it is 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes on your lunch break, 5 minutes on your way home. Taking that moment to focus inward, focus on your breathing, ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? How can I be more present with myself right here and right now? Those are things that are going to bring you into a more grounded and present and regulated state so that you aren't running around the rest of your day like a chicken with its head cut off. So my morning routine, absolutely sacred. People have asked me like, oh, can you meet in the morning? Like, can you do a posing session in the morning? Or can you work or do this in the morning? Can you meet with me in the morning? And I'm like, absolutely not. Nope. Like until anytime before 8 a.m., that is my sacred time. And I highly recommend, whether you're in prep or not, set those boundaries for yourself and with others so that you can intentionally pour back into yourself. Same thing with my nighttime routine, with the goal, obviously, of getting my cortisol down and getting my hormones into a better state. So in the evening, I am now taking progesterone because I'm trying to get myself calm. Progesterone is a calming hormone. So I'm taking some before bed. And I I have to report back. I can't sit here and say like, it's made such a difference. I don't know. I haven't taken it for that long yet. It's been one day. So I will report back on that, but taking care of my hormones, getting myself into a better state. And then also because my thyroid is struggling so bad, we did add in some T3. So I'm taking some thyroid medication, but that's not a long-term solution for me. I don't want to be on thyroid medication for my entire life. So some of the things that you can do after your show, like post-show, to get your thyroid back online. Number one, pulling stress down. Number two is going to be eating enough. So getting out of that caloric deficit, fueling yourself with enough food. And then number three, continuously testing. So again, I'll get blood work done in a couple weeks just to see if the Band-Aids that we've applied are actually working the way we need to, or if we need to change the duration or change the dosage of anything, add in anything, take out anything, etc. So I'm getting blood work done again soon, but also post-show. I think some people wait until like 6 weeks post-show to get stuff done. And my philosophy on that has kind of changed. I think you should get blood work done as soon as possible post-show because you already know that your body is going to be in a stressed and downregulated state. You already know that you just pushed yourself to the extremes. So you might as well get the blood work done and kind of see like, okay, what can we fix by tapering down cardio and bringing food up? And then what do we need to optimize through supplementation, medication, all of that stuff. I'm a big data girl. I like to have that information and not just like say, okay, yeah, grab these supplements and let's go. So obviously there are supplements that will be helpful right off the bat that you know are going to help right away. Things like cortisol support from Revive. That's pretty much a given. Anything like chasteberry, ovarian care, things to help get your sex hormones back online. So moving on. For me, I very much right now am looking at how can I get my stress down. So I'm implementing a lot of stress management techniques as much as I can, still while adhering to my protocols because I still do have body fat to lose. And I want to get in condition. I want to present my best physique. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. Obviously, if things were different, if I wasn't such a stubborn athlete, I might have considered pulling out of these shows, but I am stubborn and I am passionate about this. And I also believe that there's nothing that I can't fix at this point. It will just take time, right? So it's like, okay, in the 6 weeks, let's get me to stage. Everything's going to be great. And then afterwards, the focus is very much going to be health. And I love that I have this podcast because it feels like I can just sit here and chat with y'all and I'm going to take you through every step of my journey. So right now, you guys know your girl is working on getting her stress down, getting some hormones back online, helping my thyroid out. And then obviously as things unfold, become more clear, I will continue to share that as well. But I did just want to be incredibly transparent with where we're at in the prep and with my progression and all of that good stuff. So, I also want to say, if there are any questions or if there's anything that you guys specifically want to learn more about, I do offer blood work consultations. So if you get your blood work done, you can reach out to me and I will read it. I'll send you a Loom video where I go through everything, detail it out for you, and then also give you recommendations on supplements, lifestyle changes, and things that we can do in order to help optimize your health. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out. But I think that this would be a good time to switch gears and start answering some of the questions from the Q&A. So I will be doing a Q&A on my Instagram stories every Friday. If you're interested, go ahead, submit your questions. First question. How can I refine my posing routine so that I can stand out on stage? Everybody seems the same. So this question actually came from an NPC athlete. And in my opinion, your goal should not be to stand out on stage within your posing routine. It should be to stand out on stage because of the presence that you bring. And what I mean by that is posing in the bikini criteria specifically is meant to showcase your physique in the best way to fit the division criteria. So if you're interested in competing in bikini, the criteria is they want nice rounded delts, not overly capped or striated. So they do not want striations in the delts. They want them to be nicely built and capped out, nicely rounded, but no striations. They want a tight, defined core, but not too much like detail there, not like an etched in six pack. And then well-developed rounded glutes and hamstrings. Overall, they want a physique that is balanced. They also look at symmetry. So symmetry meaning from left to right, but also from top to bottom. So the thing with bikini that I think gets misconstrued a lot is that like, oh, if you have big glutes, like you're going to win. You're going to be fine. It's not a big glute contest. It's a balance, symmetry, and overall muscle development competition. So with that in mind, when you are posing, you want to make sure that your poses fit the criteria best, because that is what is going to be awarded. I also want to point out, they also detail in the criteria, they don't want you overly conditioned. And I know that that gets a little bit lost throughout the year, especially if you keep close tabs on national shows or pro shows. The level of conditioning does tend to vary slightly there, but it really shouldn't. So what I mean by that is, and I'll get back to the posing routine, but what I mean by that is like when you look at national stage girls, their conditioning tends to be a little bit harder and leaner than people on the pro stage. When you look at the pro stage, a lot of the winners are going to have that balance of, yes, they are conditioned, but they are full. Their muscle bellies are bursting and full. There's no striation. There's no feathering. Their muscle doesn't look dense and grainy and hard. There's an element of, oh, it looks soft. And I don't mean soft like watery, like how soft kind of translates within bodybuilding. But when you're looking at a bikini athlete, there should be an air of, oh, they look healthy and it looks achievable. And that comes from having proper conditioning, so getting lean enough and then filling out appropriately so that you don't have these etched in hard lines. They don't want that. So again, to circle back to the posing, you don't want your posing to stand out on stage. You don't want to be hitting these crazy over the top poses that are like different from everybody else. You can have a signature pose that you hit, absolutely. However, it needs to showcase your physique in the best way possible for the division's criteria. So, for example, something that I've seen is some girls like to put their hands on their hips like this as a transition. If you are a longer, taller girl with a longer torso, putting your hands on your hips right here, if you're not built appropriately, you might actually make yourself look skinny and lanky, and it doesn't give the S curve that they're looking for within the division. So I think understanding your physique is going to help a ton with when it comes to putting your posing routine together, especially for NPC athletes. You guys, in the NPC, you have 10 seconds on stage. 10 seconds. Your routine does not need to be all of this crazy sass, like all this oh my gosh. I wanted to say superfluous. I don't think that's how you say it though. I can see it in my mind. I don't know how to say it. It doesn't need all this extra flair. You don't need to be extra with it. What you need to do is nail down your front and your back pose so that your front pose demonstrates nice rounded delts, no striations, nice tight core, glutes and hamstrings, and everything being balanced. Same with your back pose. When you're hitting your back pose, what they like to see is your delts, nice roundness, nice tight waist, and then rounded glutes, developed hamstrings, but not too hard and etched in. So I think that's where people kind of get lost in the sauce, is they're like, oh, like if I push really hard or if I have big glutes, like I'm definitely going to beat this other girl, blah, blah, blah. It comes down to the balance. All right, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I don't think the goal with posing should be how can I stand out within my poses, like my posing routine. It needs to be the presence that you bring. So the confidence. When you walk on stage, your head should be held high, chest up and out, everything open, big smile, look like you want to be there. pose as though you're the only girl on that stage that day and you're the winner. You are the winner. That's the air, the confidence that you need to have. That's how you're going to stand out. Because a lot of people, we're human, we get nervous. A lot of people go up there, and if they haven't practiced their posing routine enough, or if they haven't yet developed the stage persona that they need to have, the confidence factor might not be there yet. And so they go on stage and maybe like their head's down or their shoulders are kind of in, or they forget to smile, or they hit poses, but they're like shaky and they're not certain about it. That's something that you can focus on and that's within your control to improve. That is the one way that I think you can stand out on stage, is develop that it factor, develop that confidence, go out there and shine, but don't worry too much about all the extras like the hair flips and the arm movements and whatnot. All right, I don't want to beat a dead horse, so I'm going to move on. But the next question that I got was, what are the latest trends in bikini suits and how do they impact me? Okay, that was very specific, but I liked the first half. What are the latest trends in bikini suits? What I've seen a lot this year is red, but I don't think that everybody can pull off red. I do think that it is such a bright, like sexy color, but it is very hard to nail that down if you don't have a specific hair color, skin tone, confidence. Again, the confidence is huge. So I think red is very popular, but I don't think that it is something, I don't think that red is like as tried and true as maybe like the jewel tones like green, blue, purple. Trends, I've seen a lot of velvet, which I actually love because it gives like a richer color to the suit. I've also seen the coming and going of like the ombre. I personally am not a big fan of ombre stones on a suit, but I did see like a slight trend of that. Pink, after Maureen won, I've seen a big uptick in girls willing to wear pink, and I actually love that. I think pink is such a beautiful color if you can pull it off on stage. Oh, another trend that I saw is the front scoop. But again, you have to make sure that your physique is suited for the suit that you're choosing. And if you're not sure, you need to consult an expert. And I don't mean like a bikini pro. Like I don't think that I'm an expert in suit color, cuts, suits, anything like that. Ask the Toxic Angels girls. They are amazing. Personally, I am biased towards Toxic Angels bikini. I think that they're the best. But if you have a question, email them. They answer so quickly. Instagram DM them. They will answer you same day. Like their customer service is close to none. So if you do have a question specifically on the cuts of certain suits, I would just ask them. Personally, like what I know in my opinion is that sometimes the scoop fronts or the extremely like low cut front suits, they're just not suited for everybody. If your torso is really long, if you have a certain sort of like build with your waist, that suit front just it's not flattering. Same with the back. So sometimes I see like the T backs on those suits. Some girls, it works really well for their glutes. Some girls, it cuts off a portion of your glutes. So again, if you have questions, I recommend go ask one of the girlies on Toxic Angels. They will help you out. I could do my best to answer your questions if you wanted to DM me, but I say just go straight to the source. Go straight to the experts. Okay, next question. What should I focus on during peak week? Oof. Well, first of all, I have no idea who you are or your prep, so I can't give you anything specific. My biggest peak week tip, rest. You've done all of the work. In my opinion, if you're ready on time, you're ready before peak week. Peak week is the opportunity for you and your coach to actually pull back on stressors like cardio, like training, like dieting, like the deficit that you're in, and actually start to add some of these things back to bring your physique back to life. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with bikini conditioning that I do think people still miss on. The peak week should be, we're pulling back on all of this extraneous like activity, pulling back on cardio. And the asterisk here is if you're in proper conditioning. So if you have gotten stage lean, shredded, conditioned, the next step is now to start to fill that out because we don't want striations and being peeled on stage as a bikini athlete. So for me, my biggest thing in peak week is like If we can taper down cardio, let's do that first. If we can add some food back in, let's do that again. Sleep should be priority. You need to be going to bed and getting as much sleep as you possibly can every single night of peak week. The rest, like the little details, it's very athlete dependent. So I'm peaking one of my athletes right now. She competes tomorrow, Saturday, and she's natural, all natural, no PEDs used, which I love. And I'm not really one to like ride that train, but I just think it is incredible to see her and all of the work that she put in with absolutely no PED help. So peaking her has actually been different than a lot of my other athletes because my previous athletes have used PEDs. So for me, I had to consider like her protein intake, her water, her sodium, her electrolytes, her potassium, her recovery, what we could do to get the extra edge. And honestly, it's been very similar to PED or to PED. It's been very similar to like enhanced athletes, but there have been like a few caveats, and I am blown away. I could not be happier with how her peak week is going. But I do think that coaches who send out like, here's what your peak week is going to look like, and they give you your day by day, I just think that's so lazy. I think for me, peaking is like an everyday check in, send pics, pre-training, post-training, before bed, after meals. Like there's just so much that goes into it. The level of detail reflects like how much your coach cares, I think, for your peak week. Let's see. Okay, next question. How do I navigate the competition schedules and any strategies that you use? Oh, this is a good question. So I'll speak in terms of the NPC and IFBB specifically. There are NPC shows almost every weekend from the end of March until December. So quite literally, you could have your season in the spring, the summer, the fall, the winter. The only time that I don't see any bodybuilding shows are typically like from Christmas through like February. And then obviously the Arnold is in March. And that kind of kicks off the season for all the rest of us. So strategy wise, that is a great question. I would first evaluate, where are you in your current season of life? So are you in a growth, health phase? Are you in a cut currently? That'll give you a good baseline to base your time off of. So your timeline. So let's just say you're in a maintenance phase right now. You've been growing for a while, but you're at maintenance and you're looking at next year to compete. What I would do is I would get blood work. Surprise. See where you're at. See if there's anything that needs to be optimized. If you need to take like a quick little health detour or add some supplements into your protocol, anything like that, then this would be the time to do that. And then I would start looking at, okay, where am I going to be within my life? Where am I going to be mentally, financially? Are my relationships stable? Am I anticipating moving? Is there a wedding, birthdays, special life events, anything like that coming up that would potentially mess with your competition prep? And this is actually full circle to the beginning of the podcast. You can absolutely travel in prep. However, it is very inconvenient. You'll likely won't see as fast or as optimal of progress during that time. And you also don't know, like you might be one of those people that for some reason, when you travel, you just don't poop the whole time. Couldn't tell you why. Maybe it's you being off your routine. Maybe it's because you're upregulated and you're stressed from like being out of routine. Who knows? But like that is also going to throw a wrench in some of your plans. So I would take a look, big picture, like what does my 2025 look like? And if you're like, honestly, January, February, March, April, like all I'm doing is working. I don't have any big events planned, no vacations, no trips, no weddings. Like I don't anticipate going through a breakup or losing my job or any of these things. Then what you could do is like, okay, I'm going to aim for an April show. And then you would start your prep December or January, whatever it is. Personally, I like to have longer preps because it gives you enough runway where if something were to pop up, like if you got sick, it's okay. You have enough time. Like we're not racing the clock here. But as far as strategy goes, for me personally, I guess I could give you guys some insight into why I'm doing what I'm doing as a pro. So my thoughts actually as well with competing in November is, number one, the Olympia is in like 2 weeks. So the Olympia is going to be done. I don't think many Olympians are going to want to keep their season going past the Olympia. There's going to be a few for sure. But by the time you get to November 9th, which is my pro debut show, I don't think that there are going to be like heavy hitter Olympians that are going to want to be doing those shows. I do think that there are going to be previous Olympians and there are going to be some big name like competitive girls jumping into these shows, but I don't foresee it being like a popular time to compete. So that was kind of my thought process, was I was like, let me see how I do at the end of this year when potentially like the top 10, top 15 Olympians won't be still going. Obviously I do want to get next to them at some point, and I would love to get next to some of these top name Olympians just to see like, hey, how I stack up. But also for my pro debut, I wouldn't be mad if it was like me and some other like newer pros, or maybe even like Olympians that took this year off trying to like sneak into a 2025 qualification. And then obviously like the show after that and the show after that, like, so I'm doing 3 back-to-back shows, right? I'm going to do November 9th, November 17th, and then November 23rd. And my thought process with that, like the strategy there was that, okay, November 23rd is a brand new pro show. It's never been done before. It's the first time they're offering pro bikini, and it's right before Thanksgiving. So if I'm being completely honest, I'm just going to say, I am hoping that I can snag a top 5 placing in that show. Obviously, I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to stack up. But like my personal secret goal, which now is not so secret, is that November 23rd show that's right before Thanksgiving, that not a lot of people are going to be doing it, and that I can crack into that top call out. And I know some people are going to be like, Noah, you want to go against like heavy hitters. And yes, I do. Absolutely. But also, how cool would it be to get a top placing? Just saying. I do like to compete though. So obviously like I would never want an quote unquote easy win, but I also don't think that it's ever fair to say that there's an easy win at the pro league level. Everybody who turns pro is so incredibly dedicated. Their physique is insane. Like even some of the girls that were turning pro this year, I'm like, oof, heavy hitters. Like they look good. So I don't think there's ever such a thing as an easy qualification. So I kind of want to take that back. But anyways, let's do one more question before I run out of time here. So I did have a couple. Ooh, okay. What are the best practices for managing my mental health during prep? I'm struggling. First of all, I'm really sorry to hear that you're struggling, and I want you to know that you are not alone with that. A large part of competing and also fitness as a whole is mental. It does have a lot of mindset and mental health involvement. You would not be competing in this sport if you didn't already have a little bit of mental resilience. This sport is incredibly difficult physically, but mentally, I would say it's even harder, because there are days when you don't have any energy. You have all of these tasks laid out in front of you, and you're choosing to do this. You're choosing to wake up early, do your cardio. You're choosing to go to the gym and train as hard as you can. You're choosing to say no to your friends and your family so that you can get a good night's sleep, or so that you can stay home and eat your meals. It's all a choice that you are making, but that doesn't mean that it's any less hard or that it's any less difficult. And so I really feel for you. Like mental health can be so impacted during prep if you're not careful to safeguard some of those things. So what I have done and what I continue to do is ground myself in gratitude 100%. I also this year specifically have been exploring and building a deeper relationship with my faith and with God. And I will say that has also helped a ton as far as having mental resilience on the really tough days. But I guess some of the best practices that I could recommend for managing your mental health in prep is number one, don't be afraid to communicate when you are struggling. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody, whether that is your coach, your partner, your mom, your dad, a friend, a cousin, someone that you trust and that you are incredibly close with. Use them, lean on them. Your support system is there for a reason, and you don't have to go it alone. Because a lot of the time, I think we want to say to ourselves in our head, oh, it's prep is easier if we isolate. Prep is easier by myself. It might feel that way temporarily, but if your mental health is struggling and you continue to just isolate, I almost guarantee you that you are going to have an even worse time post-show. So my number one is reach out, tell somebody that you're struggling. Even if that's all that you can say, even if you're just like, I really don't want to talk about it, but I am struggling. That way somebody knows they can hold space for you and you just aren't alone. Number two, gratitude. You need to practice gratitude. And I say practice gratitude because it is something that has to be routinely brought up, thought about, written down, practiced, embodied, felt. There's just, it can be really easy to have it be like a rote habit that you do. But I genuinely, when I wake up in the morning and I'm laying in bed and I open my eyes for the first time, I'm like, thank you so much for waking me up today. I am so grateful that I have a bed underneath me. I have a blanket on top of me. I have a pillow beneath my head. I'm breathing. My eyes have opened. My lungs are working. My heart is pumped. Like there's so many things that you can feel grateful for and truly feel it that don't involve like materialistic things or wanting more. So I think that is something that helps me a ton is gratitude. Journaling. That's another thing that I cannot go without. I journal every single morning, whether it is affirmations, whether it is I'm grateful for, whether it is a brain dump, like here are the thoughts that I'm thinking, here's how I'm feeling, and I just write and write and write, get it out of my head onto paper. And then that way I can walk away and my head feels a little bit clearer. I feel a little bit lighter. Mentally, journaling has helped me a ton. Another thing, and this is going to sound woo-woo, I'm sure, to some people, but I swear by it. Get outside. Get out in nature. Go up to a tree and put your hands on that tree and just sit with that. I truly believe nature is here to help heal us. It removes negative energy. It takes what we don't want and gets it off of our bodies. So for me, if y'all have been following me for a long time, you know, I go on my hot girl walks in the morning or at night, sunrise or sunset, whatever it is. And I truly am so present. I get into a flow. I walk around. I look at all of the nature around me. Sometimes, so if you're trying to get into being out in nature and you're trying to figure out like, okay, how can I do this and like feel really good, get that dopamine release and have that like energetic exchange with nature, set an intention for your walk or do a senses walk. So when you go outside, say, okay, I am going to notice and look at and appreciate everything that's purple. And that keeps your brain, number one, looking for things, but it keeps you present where you're at. It keeps you where your feet are at. So that way you're not just going on this walk, turning over anxieties in your head, working yourself up, getting into a stress state and not actually enjoying that present moment. Your mental health, I can almost guarantee with certainty that if you are struggling with your mental health and you go outside and you either lay down in grass, you go touch a tree, you do a senses walk, even just leaving your house, standing on your front porch and like look at whatever nature you have, I guarantee you it will help your mental health. Now I'm trying to think of anything else, but my brain went blank. I need nature. That was the last question. If I think of anything else, I'll put it on my Instagram or I'll talk about it on a longer podcast. But I'm so happy to be back, you guys. Thank you for hanging out and chatting with me today. I missed you so freaking much. As always, you guys know this podcast is sponsored by me, myself, and I. I am taking new clients. So if you feel called to work with me, use the link down below in the show notes or send me a DM on Instagram and let's schedule a call and chat, see if we're a good fit, because I would love to coach you. I would love to help you. I want to see you succeed, whether you are a first-time competitor, a seasoned competitor, or even just somebody who's been listening to the podcast who wants to get fit, who wants to take back their health, who wants to feel more confident in their life. I also take lifestyle clients because I want to help as many of you as I can. So if that feels right for you, please reach out. I would love to coach you. As always, if this episode resonated, if you loved it, if you learned something, or if you want to support me, please like, share, subscribe, send it to a friend. That just means the absolute world to me. And I will be back next week with another episode. So until then, stay relentless.